For band members to give them a vote for the next 4 years.
Questions over the upcoming election on a Manitoba First Nation spark protest.
But when we are asking the department about the work that they have done to make sure that these children are safe,
Nunavut begins to respond to a critical Auditor General's report.
Being here tonight has definitely given it another layer of excitement and just gratitude and appreciation for the people here and the Squamish Nation here too. So yeah, very grateful to be here.
A cool cultural exchange in British Columbia at a healing conference. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Leanne Sanders. The Trudeau government continues to face mounting pressure to fund the search of 2 Winnipeg-area landfills, where it is believed the remains of a number of Indigenous women's remains are located. The issue came up during question period in Ottawa today, where NDP MP Leah Gazan called on the Liberals to stop playing jurisdictional games and fund the searches.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, families and advocates took to Parliament Hill to demand this government to search the landfills in Winnipeg. This is a human rights issue. It's a dignity issue. And while the Manitoba Conservative government and this Liberal government sit by, human remains of loved ones remain in a garbage dump. Will this government stop playing jurisdictional games, uphold their international human rights obligations, and provide the much-needed resources to search the landfill?
Hear, 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 hear. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from Winnipeg Centre for this very important question. This is a heart-wrenching issue and is part of our sad reality of missing murdered Indigenous women and girls. I had the opportunity in Ottawa yesterday and in Winnipeg last month to meet with the family members, along with members of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, as well as the Long Plains First Nations Chief. I understand the deep frustration that exists with families and communities, Mr. Speaker. Our approach must be victim-centered, trauma-informed, and Indigenous-led in order to support healing, and we look forward to working with the families to reach that end. Thank you.
Members of a Manitoba First Nation are protesting changes ahead of an election for a new chief and council. People of Pinaymootang say they weren't consulted on changes to the election process and are asking for a new electoral officer. Tamara Pimentel was there.
Band meeting!
Dozens of Pinaymootang band members rally outside the band office in hopes of having their voices heard. Their signs list many issues they say they've been dealing with under the current chief, Curvis Anderson, and band council. Organizer of this protest, Clarence Sumner, says there is a lack of transparency and worries about an upcoming election.
They're going to be asking for band members to give them a vote for the next 4 years, but yet they didn't have a band meeting these 2 years. So does that mean for the next 4 years, band members are going to be in the dark?
In just over 1 month, the band will elect new leadership. But these protesters say they didn't know it was for a 4-year term instead of a 2-year term. They say there has not been a band meeting with an agenda during 2 years with their current leadership. Chief Anderson refused an on-camera interview but told APTN on the phone that the last band meeting was held November 2022. He says that there was not an agenda to allow for more discussion. He says the meeting of 60 band members saw 75% voted in favor of placing Pinaymootang under the First Nations Election Act instead of the Indian Act. This gives the next elected chief and council a 4-year term. Those protesting says most of the attendees had left the meeting before the motion.
Canada. How can we, as band members who have not even been told about this 4-year term that's been adopted, how can we go forward?
Darlene Woodhouse says they found out about the change from Indigenous Services Canada and not the nation's leadership.
We had to send in a letter to Indigenous Services Canada, to the Honourable Minister Hadju, to ask her whether our First Nation, Curvis Anderson and the Council, whether they had submitted a BCR requesting a 4-year term. That's how we found out.
160 band members signed a petition calling for an emergency band meeting to discuss the changes. Sumner says some community members on and off reserve also have questions about the electoral officer in charge. Burke Ratty is the electoral officer for Pinaymootang and has worked elections for many other nations across the prairies. Another petition has been started to have him removed. Allegations made in court documents over the past few years show that 5 other First Nations in Saskatchewan and Manitoba questioned the election practices where Ratty was an electoral officer. In August 2022, a councillor from the Dakota Teepee First Nation wanted the federal court to halt an election. The motion was dismissed, and the election continued. None of the allegations against Ratty were proven in court. APTN reached out to Ratty for an interview, but we have not heard back before airtime. Since APTN's visit to the community, a meeting to nominate candidates has been scheduled for the end of September. Members of Pinaymootang go to the polls October 31st. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News on the Pinaymootang First Nation.
A youth from Chechechit in Newfoundland, Labrador has been charged in relation to a fire that destroyed the band and council office last month. On September 4th, police were called to the fire at 5:30 a.m. The band office was engulfed in flames. The Chechechit and Northwest River fire departments battled the blaze. Thankfully, no one was inside the building at the time. The RCMP and the Provincial Fire Services investigated video evidence from the remains of the building and the nearby Innu Nation building. Chechechit RCMP confirmed that a youth from the community has been charged in the fire, but they did not release the age of the youth or the specific charges. It's the 20th anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court Powley decision. The Supreme Court's 2003 unanimous decision marked the end of a 10-year legal battle after Steve Powley was charged with illegally hunting moose near Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. The Supreme Court concluded members of the Métis community in and around Sault Ste. Marie have an Aboriginal right to hunt for food under Section 35. Métis Nation of Ontario President Margaret Froh had this to say about the significance of the Powley decision.
Government continued to just ignore the Métis and to deny our existence, to deny our rights. And so it took, and in Métis governments here in Ontario and across the West, we were supporting our harvesters in the courts, exercising their rights as a means of finding a test case. And that test case was the Powleys.
We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, Maori and Squamish cultures meet at a BC healing event.
Anywhere we are, we have exactly the same way of functioning, the same way of gathering, of enjoying music and sharing it, and this is just like home. So it feels great to be here.
Welcome back. Canada's Deputy Auditor General is in Nunavut this week as they go over a scathing report from earlier this year, with the territorial government describing its healthcare or childcare system as being under persistent and chronic crisis. According to the report, over 80% of foster homes did not have a criminal record check, over half did not receive home assessments, and only half received vulnerable sector checks. This is the third report criticizing Nunavut's childcare system since 2011. Nunavut suffers 10 times the amount of child sexual abuse compared to the national average. During the hearing at Nunavut's legislature, the Deputy Auditor General said passing on foster care case information is important when there's a high turnover rate.
But when we are asking the department about the work that they have done to make sure that these children are safe, there isn't anything for us to go on to see that there has been the follow-ups and check-ins. For us, I think the important point that we want to make looking forward is that there needs to be information that gets passed on from the social worker to the next social worker, or from the social worker to the health professional who helps these children.
The Mohawk community of Kahnawake recently hosted a conference on sustainable and responsible development of Indigenous territories. Here's Maricela Amador with more.
University of Montreal students, Indigenous urban planners, and landscape architects were in Kahnawake recently to shed light on resilient land use planning in First Nations communities. Grand Chief Kasanahawi Skaidir said that it was important to have these future professionals be part of the community for a day.
You know, when you have a CEO or a leader that believes in wanting to change the narrative, or maybe the way things had been done in the past, and coming from a genuine space and really wanting to collaborate, and that's why I said it's all about building trust, building relationships. So
the Grand Chief highlighted that these relationships are integral to successful development projects. Mona Below, who is Inuk, echoed that view. Below, who works with group BC2, told students that land use planning must take into account language and culture.
Une manière d'assurer qu'un jour il y ait de la relève, c'est de créer des programmes où est-ce que on a déjà accueilli des jeunes étudiants et nous qui étaient sur le bord de finir l'école secondaire, et on les a fait venir à l'école d'architecture pendant une semaine.
The panel also discussed the various challenges communities face because Indigenous peoples continue to be misunderstood and underrepresented in the fields of urban and regional planning. Patricia Deer, an urban planner from Kahnawake, helped organize the conference. She gave examples on how Land Back is empowering communities to plan their development projects.
So the Squamish First Nation, they have gotten back approximately 10.5 acres of land in Vancouver, and they've decided that they were going to use it to generate revenue for their nation and help them become more self-sufficient.
The Squamish First Nation is currently building a major housing development that will generate about $10 billion. Claudia André, one of the urban planning students at the event, said that it was a privilege to be in Kahnawake. She noted her interest in working with First Nations in the future.
En fait, c'est quelque chose qui rejoint beaucoup mes valeurs. Je pense que de pouvoir approprier, de pouvoir permettre aux gens de s'approprier les espaces, puis de les occuper selon leurs valeurs, c'est super important.
Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Kahnawake.
With so many Indigenous nations from around the world in Vancouver for the International Healing Conference last week, the Squamish Nation invited the Maori delegation from New Zealand to their community to exchange in cultural sharing. APTN's Tina House was there.
About 100 people gathered at the Chief Joe Mathias Center to welcome the Maoris and the Tahitians onto Squamish Nation territory.
My ancestral name is Chalik, and Sukyo Siam is my chieftain name. I'm a hereditary chief from the Squamish Nation here. I'm pleased to stand with my family. Got my wife Shaman, so really felt it in her heart to invite you over this evening. So she is very grateful that you answered the invitation to come to our village. More of our family is going to be arriving throughout the evening, and we're going to do some jamming tonight.
And the invited guests responded in their traditional language.
So I'm so welcome, and thank you for sharing. Nanati is very important.
And after sharing a delicious meal together, drummers and dancers of the Squamish Nation performed, including the youngest members of the nation. Heidi Yang Kao is from Tahiti. She says she is grateful to be here tonight.
It's like just being like home, and that's something that can only belong to Native nations. I don't know how to explain that, but it's anywhere we are, we have exactly the same way of functioning, the same way of gathering, of enjoying music and sharing it, and this is just like home. So it feels great to be here.
And then it was time for the Maori women to take center stage to share some of their culture with the crowd. Happy Ferris Brotherton says he feels honored to be here and to share with the local First Nations.
Being here tonight has definitely given it another layer of excitement and just gratitude and appreciation for the people here and the Squamish Nation here too. So yeah, very grateful to be here.
And then the Maori men stepped forward to perform the haka.
Whenever I hear our Maori relatives share their culture, it's truly inspiring to see cultural revitalization, to include families and youth, and to learn from elders. It's a parallel journey of us to move beyond colonialism and rekindle our strength, our spirituality, and our culture.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
We want to hear what you think of our top stories tonight. Here's how you can continue the conversation. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, previously known as Twitter. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Another quick break now, but coming up soon on APTN News.
Hi, I'm Annette Francis in Nipissing, Ontario, where the community is celebrating the first harvest of leafy greens. The Minojan Greenhouse Project opened its door in late June this year. It is made up of trailers with a vertical row-on-row growing system of different lettuces and herbs that are capable of growing up to 25,000 heads of lettuce a year. And we'll meet Sergeant Chantel LaRock of the Anishinaabe Police Service in the Nipissing Detachment. She'll be opening for the Jays game with a trilingual version of O Canada on September 30th for National Truth and Reconciliation Day. Watch for those stories later this week on APTN National News.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Randy Whitbread says the spirits of the old ones were dancing when he took this photo of the Northern Lights near Flin Flon, Manitoba. Amazing photo, Randy. We want to see your photos too. Email us at share@aptn.ca and you could be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, we're looking at 21 for St. John's tomorrow, Fredericton 18. Northern Quebec, La Grande River 18. Newfoundland Labrador, Nain is 7. Southern Quebec, Val d'Or 18 tomorrow, Quebec City and Montreal 20. In Ontario, Toronto 21, Sault Ste. Marie 23. Northern Ontario, Big Trout Lake 24, and Wawa and Thunder Bay 21. In Manitoba, Churchill 14 tomorrow, God's Lake 21. Barons River and Princess Harbour 19 tomorrow, Winnipeg 25. Southern Saskatchewan, Saskatoon and North Battleford 19, Yorkton 21. Northern Saskatchewan, Uranium City 15 and La Ronge 18. Northern Alberta tomorrow, High Level and Fort Chip 17, Grand Prairie 16. Southern Alberta has Edmonton at 14 and Calgary 9. Southern BC, Kamloops 16 tomorrow, Campbell River and Bellacoola 20. Northern BC, Dease Lake 18, Fort Nelson 18. Old Crow 10 and Rock River 7. The Northwest Territories, Norman Wells 13, Fort Simpson 15. Further north, Inuvik 10 and Colville Lake 8. And Baker Lake 10 tomorrow, Whale Cove and Arviat 11. Resolute 4 and Igloolik 2. The Calgary International Film Festival kicks off on Thursday. And on opening night, there is a panel featuring Indigenous artists who want to keep humor in their storytelling. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
On opening night of the festival, Creatives Empowered and Warner Brothers Discovery Access Canada will have you rolling in your seats. The Power of Humor in Storytelling is a panel with some of the best comedic talent in Canada. Cody Lightning, Cherished Violet Blood, and moderator Telly James will talk about how they use humor in their storytelling. Actor and director Cody Lightning says humor is a part of Indigenous culture.
How many times do you go to a ceremony, whether it's like a wedding ceremony, someone's passing, anything, and you just hear aunties and uncles, or even at a funeral where someone's passing away, people are still joking. And that's who we are.
Actor Telly James told APTN that grassroots comedy is the most authentic.
In TV, definitely things are a little too serious right now, and I think we need to find the humor in the stories that we're telling, but the authentic humor, because there are a lot of people out there that haven't necessarily grown up on a reserve, but they're writing humor. Like comedies, and to me, the humor isn't authentic. And I think we need to empower our storytellers that actually live on the reserves and let them know that, yes, you can tell your stories because we want to hear them.
Lightning says that comedy can help when times are hard.
When something traumatic happens in my life, I find a way to make light of it. I have to find a way to make light of the situation that's dark, because like I said, otherwise we would just be a sad people. We're not. We're resilient. And through that is humor.
Doors open for the event at Cameo in downtown Calgary Thursday at 4:30. You can RSVP for free at creativesempowered.ca. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
A First Nations artist and beater is the winner of a $20,000 Yukon Art Prize. Northern Tuchone and Tlingit artist Kaylin Baker beat out 5 other finalists to win the award dubbed the Yukon Prize. The monetary award is intended to help Yukon artists focus full-time on their art practice. Baker's submission included beading and fashion design work created throughout her career. She says this is the first award she's ever won.
I'm really happy that my family's here, because all I've ever wanted to do is make my grandparents and my parents proud.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Have another look at our newscast and check out more stories at aptnnews.ca. Good night.